How many of you are prepared for an incident like this? Get my new book, Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival, and I will teach you to think like an attacker so you can truly defend yourself. Don't just react, act. Available for pre-order now on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. Sheep No More. Get it. Defend yourself. Don't just react, act. Available for pre-order now on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. Sheep No More. Get it.
My name is Jonathan Gillum.
And this is The Experts.
This is Jonathan Gillum, and this is The Experts on Facebook Live, Twitter, and YouTube. And hello to everybody on YouTube. There's like 5 people over there. Hi. And on Twitter, thank you all for joining in. Make sure you're retweeting it, the show. Make sure on Facebook that you share it. We have to fill the news feeds, and yesterday was pretty good. We're back up over 100,000 people in the news feed. I'm going to share this show right now as I'm talking, and I want you to do the same thing. So today, what I want to talk about is, catchy little headline there, there's actually a lot of stuff to talk about that I really want liberals to take notice of. And I'm going to explain this. And I'm trying to be a voice of reason here, not a voice of anger or that we're going to have arguments about. So I'm sharing this show. Make sure that you share it on Facebook and Twitter. and let's get started. All right, so here we are. Once again, I am sharing this show. My voice is raspy because I have been doing a ton of interviews this past 2 days, 24 hours really. I got very little sleep last night, back up doing more interviews today. It's interesting the difference between the interviews that I'm having now and what I've done before. It's very interesting because in the past, these interviews have been basically a political debate. It always goes straight to politics every time. And this time, you're not actually seeing that. You're not seeing that as much. Of course, you're going to see it on the left. Hold on a second here. I got to block this person. There's some kind of weirdo over on Twitter every time that comes on with some kind of weird. Anyway, I just blocked him. But if you're liberal, I want you to watch this show, and not from an angry standpoint. I don't care about trolls tonight. I'm not going to pay attention to the trolls. So all you're going to do is add to the people that are watching this show. That's it. I don't want to give them any fire. And if you're liberal, though, I'm not going to call you a leftist. I'm not going to, if you disagree about the gun issue, for instance, I'm not going to come down on you. That's not what I'm trying to do tonight, and that's not what I typically try to do anyway. I typically try to have a conversation, whereas everybody else seems to get in these arguments and nothing gets fixed, right? So what I want to do is I want to discuss I want, and I know that liberals are going to think I'm a little bit off on this, but I want to discuss reality and effectiveness and effective thinking and effective solutions versus the liberal, what we've termed in this country. Somehow we've gotten to a point where we call it, this is a liberal agenda. This is the Democratic agenda. Why? Why does it have to be that agenda? And we're going to talk about that. And I want to talk about how a lot of these things that the Democrats lean towards are really policies and ideologies that, if they took a step back, they would see that it doesn't work at all. And that's the problem, is that they don't take a step back. I've been on the edge of a cough all day today. The flu came, it went, it's left me with this thing in my chest that keeps making me cough. So I'm throwing honey and cough drops and Singer spray, thank you, Maureen, all this stuff down my throat to try to get, and I even have an inhaler that they gave me. Can you believe that? Guy used to be a Navy SEAL. Doctor gives me an inhaler because this flu leaves stuff in your chest. It's sick the way this stuff works. So you're going to hear me coughing throughout. Get over it. I'm sorry, I can't do anything about it. Okay. So let's talk about this. I'm going to bring up the headlines, and I'm going to explain to you what I'm talking about. Because remember, my goal is not to demean anybody who says they're liberal. My goal is not to come on here and say one person is better than the other. My goal is to come on here and show you an example of, several examples of effective thinking and reality versus ideological thinking and not reality. So let's just start with the headlines, and we're going to work our way through this, and you're going to see this. So first and foremost, and I'm going to cover a lot of things I would cover anyway, and I'm also going to show you that it's not just liberals. It's not just liberals, but by and large, a lot of the problems that we do have come from the leftist ideology that has penetrated people that lean, that have a little bit more of a liberal mindset when it comes to either social programs or fiscally or whatever. So hopefully you'll see what I'm talking about by the end of this. So right here, I'm looking at foxnews.com. I look at CNN as well. but quite often, to tell you the truth, I'm not even going to go over there right now. CNN is most often very skewed. Now, again, liberals will say, well, Fox News is skewed. Fox News can be skewed. I'm not going to lie about that. Fox News can be skewed, and I quite often call them on it. It's not like I'm going to sit back and be a pawn for anybody. That's not who I am. That's not what I do. I'm not a pawn for anyone. The truth is my guide, and effective solutions are always the outcomes that I'm looking for. And I live in reality. I don't live in a fantasy world. So when we look today, for instance, all across the board, the headlines about the shooting in Miami at a school. Now, I've talked ad nauseum. I did a whole show about that last night. If you haven't had a chance to watch last night's show, please do. It'll open your eyes up a little bit to the way subject matter experts look at these issues that we have with gun violence in schools and so on and so forth, and there really are solutions where people think that there's no solution except to take away guns. Well, that is exactly what I want to start off with here, is that the beating of the drums of the AR-15. Got to get rid of the AR-15. The AR-15 is no good. This. We've already gone down the road away from effective thinking and away from real solutions, such as we talked about last night with getting former law enforcement and veterans qualified so they can stand at schools and so that they can stand a post, and that you could go into school very easily. The parents, the teachers, the whole staff, local law enforcement, and the fire marshal, they could do evaluations on the schools. It's very easy. Get my book, Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival. This book will tell you everything you need to know about this. I'm not just coming on here to sell the book, but it's a fact that I wrote the book so you wouldn't have to go find experts to do this for you. You can do it. You can do it in your home. You and the staff and everybody can do it at your schools. I'm just using schools as an example because it's in the news right now. But if you're a manager of a sports team or if you work in a hospital, you could do it there. You sit back and you look at your facility from an attacker's point of view. You look at your home. You look at your life, your commute to work, and you determine through a set of exercises that are not difficult that these are the different types of attacks that could happen in this sector. It doesn't matter if it's your church or school. Well, let's focus on the schools like we did yesterday. Once you determine that there's, anywhere between 5 and 10 different attacks that could happen, you start looking at the vulnerabilities that these attackers will exploit in order to get there. Is it a former student? Is it a student that was expelled? Is it somebody who's a parent that's commonly there? Is it somebody who, are there other vulnerabilities like you have 20 or 30 or 40 doors at your school and they're all unlocked because that's just a policy. Nobody's ever thought about it. See, these are vulnerabilities that can be exploited. You can have another vulnerability would be in school, this huge thing about backpacks now. Everybody's got to have a backpack, and they got to carry their books in the backpack from class to class. Instead of like when I was in school, we just carried our books. We put them in the locker, carried our books from class to class. Maybe we had a backpack, but a lot of people didn't have backpacks back then. And so now a backpack is a vulnerability because people can sneak things into school. But when you look at these vulnerabilities, there are ways to mitigate them, because I don't know if you've noticed this, but there's certain characteristics in which the way people bent on killing in schools and other places, it kind of unfolds in a certain way. Almost 100% of these happen after class is already in session and the person enters the room. That is a behavior that is not normal on a daily basis, and it's something that can be mitigated. You say if you're not in your classroom by this point in time, then you have to go to the doors will be locked and you have to go to the principal's office. That's how you mitigate things. You look at these 40, 50 doors that are around the school. You get with the fire marshal. You say, how many of these doors have to be left open? And he may say these 5 right here, front and back, so that we have ways to exit. But the ones in the gym, the ones over here in the side of the school, the ones by the cafeteria, those can be locked where people can't access from the outside, but they can leave from the inside. Okay, cool. What happens then? The bad people that want to come in, or just people who are trying to visit the school, or people that are late to school, will be funneled to these 5 different entrances. And so it could be 2 entrances. So what happens there is you have mitigated that vulnerability of the doors. Now, as we were talking about yesterday, you take veterans and you take former police officers, you give them a tax incentive or a concealed weapons carry license in 50 states, and you let them qualify and arrange, and they can volunteer to set up a post for 10 to 20 hours a month. There's literally millions of these people in this country. And now what do you have if you just did that? You have secured the doors, funneled the area where bad guys have to go in and out, and you've set up security in those areas with people who are trained to use weapons in those areas, trained just as well as the police that will respond, I may add. And they're trained and they're there and they're watching those doors. Most likely you'll never have another shooting at a school that did that, ever, unless it's outside and it's taken care of before the person even enters the school. These people should never be entering into the school, into the classrooms. So that's just a suggestion, right? Now, why am I bringing that up again after last night? Because here's where things go crazy, and it comes from the left. You can't deny it. Again, I'm not trying to blame liberals for all the bad things in this country. I'm trying to get you to see reality here. I turn on the TV. I go on TV. I go on the radio today, 2 different shows. I had to debate with people that simply do not get it. It was all about gun control, all about getting rid of ARs, all about limiting the amount of guns that a person can have in their possession, which is kind of stupid in and of itself, because if I have 50 guns, I can only shoot 1 gun at a time. So I'm not going to carry 50 guns with me into a school, just like the guy who shot up Vegas. He had like, I don't know, a dozen or more guns in his room, but he's only shooting 1 gun at a time. I still think there was more people involved with that, and there's a whole backstory, but let's just say it was him. He's only shooting 1 gun at a time. So the reality is, it doesn't matter if you have multiple magazines. It doesn't matter if you have a pistol. It doesn't matter if you have an AR-15 or a shotgun. A guy, I'm not going to say his last name, but we used to call him Rendon. That's all I'm going to say. And he was in at Team 4 with me. He's left-handed. He's one of those evil spawned left-handed people, and he can reload a shotgun so fast it will blow your mind. I mean, I've never seen anything like it. He's like a rocket man, just boom, and he's back on target because he's left-handed. He can do that. It's one of the good things that they can do. So, it doesn't matter the number of guns that you eliminate people from having. Attacks are still going to happen. You can take away all the guns from the good people. Bad people are still going to get them, because law enforcement will never be able to take away all of the guns from this country. And if you restrict the good people from having them, and you don't take it upon yourself to put armed guards up there where you need them, the one person that will show up with a gun is going to be somebody who's doing something wrong. That's a fact. So it doesn't make any sense. This conversation that we continue to have is, yeah, somebody just said on Twitter, the UK is a stabbing capital of the world. Exactly. I said today on Dr. Drew's show, and I had, I don't know her. I'm not going to talk bad about her. I don't appreciate the way she talked about me after I went off the air. But his co-host, Lauren Sivan, the entire interview, it was as if her sole job in life was to go against anybody that had an effective solution. And if it had anything other than we need to eliminate guns, then you were wrong. She didn't even take the time to hear what I said. You see, listening is a skill set that so many people do not have. They know how to talk. They love to give you their opinion, but they don't know how to stop and listen. And that's very important when we're debating something like taking care of your children and securing an area where you drop them off for 8 hours a day of almost their entire young life. So she didn't want to hear it. And it got to a point where they were asking strange questions like, so, because I said it doesn't matter if you have a gun, you could go into a classroom and I could kill just as many people with a knife as I could with a gun. And Dr. Drew says, whoa, whoa, whoa. Now, you're telling me that you're saying that you could kill just as many people with a knife as a gun in the same amount of time? And I said, yes. And you can. If you have a knife that's sharp enough, first of all, and you practice working that knife, and you go into these classrooms, and I guarantee you, folks, and I don't want to be too brutal here, but you go in front of all these kids, and you purposely walk up to the teacher, and you stab them, and then you cut their throat. What do you think those students are going to do? Because of the way they've been trained, they've been taught learned helplessness. They're not going to turn on the guy. They're not going to throw their deaths at him. They are going to cower, and they're going to start to beg for their lives. And you could systematically kill all of them. So somebody just called me a moron on Twitter. See, this is exactly what I'm talking about. I know what I'm talking about. I've done my research. I've seen the way you could go in with a machete. It doesn't have to be a regular knife. It could be a machete. It could be a Gurkha. I've got a big-ass Gurkha that is so sharp that I literally could take the head off of somebody in one shot. I can shave with the thing. It's so sharp. And it's like this big and nice curve. The fact is, if you go in swinging and nobody's defending themselves, I can kill just as many people with that knife. A knife is just as deadly. It's true. So, but the point I was trying to make through this whole thing is that it shouldn't even get to that. People who are set on doing bad things in a school, in a hospital, should not even be getting into that area. But we don't think like that. And I'm trying to get people that are on this whole gun, ban the guns, all this stuff, to just stop for a second and realize you are wasting your breath, because it's an empty argument. You're never going to be able to take, you want a civil war again, try to eliminate or restrict the Second Amendment. I can guarantee you there'll be a firefight all across this country. You are not going to do it. And it's going to prolong what we could be doing, which is securing these schools. Listen, there's nothing here about that I'm trying to say that anything's justified about killing one way or the other. I'm not trying to say that I'm not trying to place blame on people for these policies, although I can blame politicians. What I'm trying to do, again, is get you. If you're a liberal person, if you identify with liberal, you may not even realize what liberal is. I think it's a game that's being played, whether you're liberal or conservative. But let's say you identify with liberal, and you have this, you hate guns, and you hate the fact that people are dying. Well, guess what? I hate the fact that people are dying as well. I don't like it when I would like to see no more children die in school, no more teachers, no more coaches like this brave coach that jumped in front of the bullets and died, saving students at this school in Florida. I don't want to see that anymore. But I'm a realist, and I know that taking away guns from people won't solve it. I know that you'll never be able to take knives away from everybody. That's not going to solve it. You can debate all you want. You can call people idiots. You can say that people are gun freaks all you want. It's not going to fix anything. There are realistic ways to secure schools, and you have to look towards the subject matter experts, not towards the politicians, not towards the activists, not towards the people that are trying to push an ideological solution, not an effective solution. So if you're liberal, you need to realize this. When you start having these debates, you need to stop and you need to ask yourself this question. What are we debating? Are we trying to save children's lives, or are we debating on something that has to do with a policy that is never going to happen? Are we debating something that politicians are going to, it's a wave that politicians ride so they can continue to get elected, and it's not going to fix anything? You seriously need to ask yourself that. I find it very interesting when I talk to liberals and they say that, and again, I'm using the term liberals because that's what people call themselves. Like, I never call somebody, if I can help it, unless I saw somebody beating somebody up and I said he has, he's dark skinned or he's a black male, height 6'4", looked like he was about 250 pounds. I'll use the term there in a professional manner describing somebody who's done something. If I'm supposed to meet somebody, I'll say, oh yeah, I'm a white guy with brown hair, green eyes. I'm about 6 feet tall and I weigh 235, and I'll meet you over here. I'll have a white shirt on, right? I'm using it to describe myself. But I would never call somebody and identify with somebody as a black man or a brown man or a white guy. I look at the person. I don't look at the color of their skin. But the problem is now, when you turn the TV on, you got people who have dark skin that are constantly, like CNN, you turn it on, you're going to hear black male like 50 times of people calling themselves, I'm a proud black man, I'm a proud black woman. So we get into this weird way where we're trying to, and I'm going to equate this back, we're trying to get away from racism. We're trying to get away from these issues, but yet we keep getting drawn back into it by people who are activists or politicians, not people who are trying to bridge the divide and break down the racial barriers. And it's the same thing here when we're talking about gun violence and we're talking about securing our schools. The reality is there's a whole list of things that we could do: fixing mental illness, recognizing mental illness, separating severe mental illness from things that are uncomfortable in your life, like depression and these things that can be treated with medications and are no business of your boss. But these other people have these debilitating, psychotic, schizophrenic, extreme narcissist, sociopathic ways and tendencies. Those should be identified and those should be looked at differently. That's another thing. But you're not going to hear that. You're going to hear them go straight back to the guns. So the point I'm trying to make with all this and all these different examples is that when I have a discussion with liberals and even conservatives, you want to term yourself that way one way or the other. Another point I was trying to get out there with the color of skin and stuff is I'm a realist. I look for effective solutions. I don't lean to the left or lean to the right based on an ideology. My ideology is truth, and I seek effective solutions. So that is my guide. If you allow an ideology to be your guide, unless it's your religion, and if it's just an ideology like that's the Democrats, that's what the liberals say, so I'm going with that, and I'm outraged too, and I think we should get rid of guns, you're not thinking it through. And you have to start looking at the total aspect of what these issues are about and how you effectively solve them, realistically solve them. Attempting to ban guns, even having the conversation, blaming the NRA, blaming the Republicans, doesn't make any sense. I mean, the guy who killed the church shooter in Texas earlier this year was an NRA member and a conservative. And he's the guy who shot the shooter with an AR-15 that he went back in his house and got out of his safe. So so Chelsea Handler and these other people that are saying that these massacres keep happening because of the NRA, it's actually the complete opposite. The NRA puts on, you don't see Chelsea Handler putting on classes to help people in schools defend themselves. No. But the NRA teaches classes constantly, day in and day out, every year, to people that want to learn how to use their firearms legally, that want to use their firearms safely, so they can learn how to employ them when they need to and learn how to keep them secured when they don't. You don't see people on the left doing that. They blame the NRA, they blame the Republicans, they blame the conservatives for all this gun violent, weirdos like Chelsea Handler, but you don't see them offering any solution, only blame. And the fact is, if the NRA had its way, what I've been saying about having veterans and former police officers standing guard, that's the way it would be. And you wouldn't have had this shooting. So I'm not here to back the NRA. I'm not here to back a Republican Party. I'm here to say that time and time again, when we look at these different things, which I'm going to discuss another one here in just a second, when I look at the solutions that are coming from the Democratic Party, I think if you're liberal and you identify yourself as an American citizen and somebody who wants a safe country to live in and want people to be safe when they go to church or school, if that's the way you identify, but you say I'm liberal, you know what? You may actually be more of an effective thinker than you are anything left or right. But if you just go right along with what they say, you're going to be caught in that trap, and there's going to be no effective solution come out of it. Now, another thing that we can equate to this is this whole immigration issue. You know, tomorrow I'm going to be hosting David Webb's show in the morning at 9 to 12 Eastern Standard Time, 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. I tell you what, this freaking flu is sick. It is sick. So, I'm going to be hosting David Webb's show tomorrow. I'm going to have Michael Cutler on there. We're going to talk about immigration. I already know what Michael's going to say because I've talked to him enough. There is, when we look at, and the Republicans are just as at fault here as the Democrats. I've really got to give it to President Trump. He is sticking to his guns in this because what he believes is effective. That's what got him elected. You know, building the wall, coming up with new policies for immigration. I'd like to see him go a little bit further and actually talk about the coming up with better policies and standards across the board. Don't let anybody in this country unless they can be vetted, and have the same standards for somebody coming from Great Britain as somebody who's coming from Somalia or Syria. If you can't pass a background check, if they can't verify fingerprints, if they can't verify where you've lived all your life, or if what a phone number is, then you don't come to this country. I'm sorry, but that's the way it should be. And so I'd like to see the president study those policies a little bit more and come up with effective, streamlined policies. Now, when we look at immigration, though, and the debate that's going on in Congress and the Senate, I mean, today, President Trump says Trump calls proposal a total catastrophe. And that was the Democrats' proposal. Now, I want you to listen to this. President Trump tweeted this out. And again, remember what I'm trying to tell you here. I'm not trying to bash you if you consider yourself a liberal person. I'm wanting you to realize that if you follow blindly and just jump on the ideological bandwagon, that you're going to end up being a part of issues that have no solution. You may be a complete backer of dreamers in this country. You may love the dreamers, right? But the fact is, there's a problem with that program. Now, I'm a conservative guy. I guess if you wanted to put me on a scale of liberal or conservative, I fall more conservative in my thought process, but I still look at things from an effective standpoint and a realistic standpoint. And that being, I've never agreed with this, let's get rid of 11 million people out of this country that came here illegally. I know several people in this city personally that came here when they were young. One guy was a SEAL. He came here when he was a baby. He became an American citizen. Another girl who came over when she was 15 because she was a little bit of a hellraiser in Colombia, and they already had family up here, so they smuggled her here and made her live with her grandma, and she grew up to be an incredible woman. And Paula, if you're watching. And I don't know if she's an American citizen or not, but let's say she's not. Well, why in the world should Paula be kicked out of this country? She is a law-abiding citizen, never been arrested, has a full-time job as an incredible executive assistant, amazing person. What I believe when we look at just DACA, right, is we should look at these, each individual should come forward. We should have a set of standards. And I know that they'd like to make it sound like, yeah, they're talking about dreamers, but they're 30 years old. Well, Paula's a dreamer. She came here when she was 15. She's now my age. She's in her 40s. And what sense would it make to kick her out and into a country that she doesn't know when she's a good person and a law-abiding citizen? Or not a law-abiding citizen, a law-abiding person. Well, I think, yeah, she broke, I get what you're saying there, Jolene. She broke the law coming illegal. She was 15. She was a minor when she came here. The fact is, if you came here, legally or not, and you've been here for 30 years and you've never been a problem to this country, and you have always held a job, and you're a contributing member to society, well, then you should be given a contract with America, a contract that says, first off, you came here illegally, so you obviously paid that debt in full because you've been a good person. If you've done a crime, you're gone. But give them a contract that says, in order to become a citizen of this country or a legal resident, you're going to have to do these 15 or 20 things. Don't commit any law. Don't break any laws. You have to pay taxes on any paycheck that you get. You have to check in certain amounts of times. You do all these things, and then you allow them to live by those standards for a set of years, and then they become an American citizen. Don't just say you've been here for 30 years, and so if you're here for 5 more, we'll give you a citizenship. Give them standards. They came here illegally. Let them pay the price by showing that they have standards and they'll uphold them. That's an effective solution. Kicking people out of here that have been here for 30 years, that came here when they were 15. So Deb Lutz says she could have applied at 21. Yeah, she could have applied at 21, but she came here when she was 15. She came here illegally. Do you think that the majority of people, I don't trust this government. Do you think that somebody who came here illegally as a minor and has been here was here for 6 years at that point, that they would trust the government enough not to deport them when their family is here? No. And I've heard horror stories. The immigration system here is crap, and it needs to be fixed so that we can avoid this type of thing. See, here's the point. Good conservative people that watch this show every night disagree with me, and they're saying, well, she came here illegal. She did this. She did that. Yes, I get it. And you're going to deport 11 million people? It ain't happening. It's not going to happen. You may deport 100 here or 50 there, but there's going to be millions of people that are still here illegally. Doesn't it make sense to offer them a contract with America, not a pathway to citizenship? A contract, a pathway means you just walk this way and you could become a citizen. A contract with America, so that you have 5 years to do these things and show that you can continue to walk in this direction and you can become a citizen. But you got to step forward and you have to identify yourself. If you do not, and then you are caught, it doesn't matter if you came here when you were 15, then you'll be deported. You see, that makes sense. Somebody wrote self-deportation. Michelle writes self-deportation. Do you really think that's going to happen? That's not going to happen. People that don't know Colombia, for instance, like Paula, she's not going to want to go back and self-deport to Colombia and risk never coming back to her home that she's known for 30 years. It doesn't. You see, listen. This is a good example of what I'm talking about. You got people on the left and people on the right. And you want to argue about something that you may be correct, but it's not going to, you could have the morals and say, they came here illegally. Okay, they came here illegally. And that's wrong. But they came here as a minor, and they've been here for 5, 10, 20, 30 years. Now, come on. You have to think realistically. You can't deport all these people. they're going to stay here illegally. So you might as well offer something that's a solution to get them paying taxes, to give the honest ones that step forward a contract with America so they can become a citizen. And those that don't step forward, now you have a measurement of people that you need to go after. Now, is that the answer? I don't know if it's the answer, but it is a realistic solution. Simply saying, nope, they came here illegal, they got to be deported. Morally, you may be right, but it's never going to work. If you put every single person in jail that did an illegal drug, our jails would be completely overflowed. It's better to put the people in jail that deal drugs, that manufacture the drugs, and then penalize the people who get caught taking the drugs with huge financial burdens so they don't do it again, and force them with that money to go to some kind of rehab, or put their name in the paper publicly that shows that they're doing drugs. Whatever you want to do. The fact is, there's lots of solutions, but there's very few effective solutions. And most of the solutions that people give are based on their ideology. Look, I don't like illegal aliens in my country. I'm the first one to say that. I think we should have a wall that goes the entire southern border and part of the northern border. I think we should put military bases all along the borders. Instead of putting them in the center of the country, put our military bases on the borders of our country. Let the military train there. I guarantee you that'll stop the majority of people from coming over. You ever tried to sneak on a military base? It ain't happening. So you do that. Stop the illegal influx into this country. Put up standards that don't allow people to come here legally if they can't get a background check. And then offer the people that have been here that were minors that came over, or the people that have been here for 20, 30 years and that haven't done anything wrong, have been working, offer them a contract with America. You see, that is an effective solution. Not, let's just deport them all. Let's get rid of them and build a wall. First off, we can't even get a wall built right now because you got politicians that are going back and forth trying to strip the funding for this or put the funding in for that. So if we had leaders in Washington, D.C., if the American people would just stop for a second and say, how do we fix this? Let's take the ideology out of it. Let's take the emotion out of it. How do we fix this problem from this point forward? There are solutions. But if you stick with your ideology, you're going to see that it's going to break down. That just like on the left, let's get rid of the guns. They don't talk about how to secure a building. They don't talk about how to use veterans or former law enforcement to secure buildings. They don't talk about doing threat assessments. They just say, let's just take the guns away. And on the right, they say, deport them all. And that ain't going to work. People won't come forward. They won't self-deport. They're not going to risk their lives after 30, 40 years here to have to go back down there to that shithole. And that's what it is. I said it. So I'm glad that I got some pushback here because this is exactly what I'm talking about. Politics is a scam. It's a lie. We need leaders that come up with effective solutions, not people who go and pry on emotion and ideology. And nobody in this is another thing that just kills me. I hear millennials say this stuff all the time. They say, well, it shouldn't be this way. It should be this way. I'm trying to think of one example that I've heard recently, but ultimately, abortion is a perfect example. So many liberals that I know are against the death penalty but believe in abortion. That, first of all, makes no sense to me whatsoever, okay? You want to save the life of a killer, but you want to kill an innocent child that hasn't been born yet, okay? That's not thought out well to begin with. Secondly, you have our constitutional rights, and you have our lives are protected by our Constitution and the rights that are granted by God. So therefore, science can't tell me, and science will never be able to tell us where life begins and life, well, it can tell us where life ends, but they can't tell us where life begins. They cannot tell us where life begins. Science can't. So all life must be protected, right? So then I hear liberals say, well, you can't tell a woman what to do with her body. You know, you can't invade on somebody's privacy and tell them that they have to have a baby. Well, we don't live in a fake world where you get to do everything that you want, and regardless of how it affects other people. We live in a world, we live in a country that is made up of over 300 million people. So you're going to have to bend on some of your beliefs or some of your demands, and abortion is one of those things. Do you realize, liberals that are watching this, do you realize, or people who say like Tommy Lahren, who's a fake liberal who says or a fake conservative who, doesn't mind the abortion thing, do you realize how many billions of abortions have happened? Ask yourself this question. Do you even know where the fetal tissue goes? Do you know where the blood goes? Do you know where this stuff... Do you think that that's kind of a weird statement to make? There are people out there that are utilizing young blood, and this has been put in the New York Times. Now, they like to say that it's like, we'll take a healthy 19-year-old and they'll do a blood transfusion with somebody who's in their 50s. And they do that very often, and scientifically it's shown that it'll make the older person young. They did the experiments with mice. They've been doing this for a while. Have you ever asked yourself a question if you believe in abortion? Not just whether or not it's your right, which it's not, but have you ever considered what they do with the organs and the blood and the tissue of these babies? And they're not just little embryos. These are sometimes fully developed babies that could live outside the body. You should consider that. That's how you make full, well-rounded decisions. There's a clock that you can look up online that tells you how many abortions are happening. It's a clock that counts the number of abortions. You'll be amazed when you see that. And you may think, well, I'm one woman. You may be some dude who knocked some girl up, and you say, well, it was just going to be this one time because it was an accident. We don't want it to happen. You times that times millions, and you're going to see that that's not just that much tissue. That's enough tissue to fill an entire room. That to me is odd. There's some weird stuff going on there. But more than anything, I'm kind of digressing here a little bit, is the fact that people believe, even though they live in a country with 300 million people, they still believe that their opinion is the only opinion that matters. And when you live in a country with that many other people, I'm sorry to tell you that you're not going to get everything that you want. You must look at what's effective. And in the case of an abortion, for instance, you have to look at what is effective to sustain life. Put abortion to the side. We have to put laws in place that protect life, that make sure that you, as a grown person or a growing person, that your life is protected. Now, when you do that, you can't stop at a certain point and say, nope, we can't go any farther because that living human is inside of a woman. That baby has rights. But if you look at what the policies and the politicians do, they bend these policies, they bend these rights, they make people believe that you shouldn't have to be told what to do with your body, when in fact you're not just doing what you want with your body, you're killing a human being. And these things aren't considered. So take the religion out of it. Take the emotion out of it. Look for the effective solution. What do we do to sustain life outside the body? Well, the same thing should go for any living human being. That's an effective policy. You protect life. I can't say that I'm only going to protect from this point forward, because what happens if you get pregnant and somebody doesn't like you and they walk up and punch you in the stomach and you abort that baby, and the baby could have lived, right? Should that person be charged with murder? Or should you just say, no, that wasn't murder? Look, they got into a scuffle. He punched her in the stomach, and she had her body aborted the baby. Okay. So what's the difference in that, and the difference in that type of, that's assault? It should just be assault. If I go up and I punch somebody in the stomach, and they tell the cops, guess what I'm going to get charged with? Assault. But if I go and punch somebody in the stomach that has a baby growing inside of them, and the baby ends up aborting and dies, there's a good chance I'll be charged with murder. So how is it then, if a woman has a baby growing inside of her, and she decides, I don't want it, and she gets this thing called an abortion where they literally rip it out, that's not considered murder? Well, I'll tell you why. Because idiot politicians and evil activists have convinced people in this country and around the world that one is murder and the other one is not. And people fall for it because this one is convenient. This one is convenient. Go get an abortion because you don't want the baby. That's convenient. So, okay, they must be right. You can't have everything that you want in a country where you live with 300 million people. If you want to have your own stuff, go get rich like Richard Branson. Go buy your own island and set up your own little country. Pay $1 million for your doctor to come down there, have all the sex you want, and abort all the babies that you want. Go do that in your country, and you can make it up in your Constitution that life begins from the time the baby is born. That's your country. But you live in America. And the Constitution protects all life. And science can't tell us where life begins, therefore all life must be protected. And if I walk up and punch a pregnant woman in the stomach and she aborts that baby and it dies, I'll be charged with murder. So why is it that a woman that goes to the doctor and has it ripped out of her stomach when the baby could have lived, why isn't that murder? Because the American population has given themselves over to nefarious criminal politicians that don't care about people, and they don't care about the citizens in this country. They only care about being reelected and about their political parties, and they are narcissistic, egotistic. Many of them are psychopathic, and you're allowing them to set your policies, and you're allowing them to convince you that this is okay. It's okay to do this, when in fact it's not. And why am I talking about this when I started talking about the school shooting and I talked about DACA? Because I'm trying to make a point here. If you're liberal, or even if you're conservative, which you've shown tonight, you should not rely on politicians who make up policies for the wrong reasons to secure your life, to set your moral boundaries, or to make laws that are unethical. The American citizens in this country can stand up and fight against these politicians. You can vote them out of office. You can come together by the... Why aren't all the Christians in this country marching on Washington, D.C. together all at once? There'd be 50 million Christians. You could stop everything in Washington, D.C. just like that. Why isn't it happening? It's not happening because it's not convenient for you. So the point of this, what I'm trying to make here tonight, is that we need to stop following the left or the right, the liberal or the conservative. You need to stop following the activists and the politicians. And you need to start looking and having dialogue about what is effective. How do we solve these problems? How do we protect everybody and ensure that all life is protected? This is why we continue to have people killed in schools, and bad people are allowed to penetrate into the schools, walking straight into a school. These people didn't even know this guy was in the school. He pulls the fire alarm and then starts shooting. They didn't even know that he was in there. How is that remotely possible? In a place where I think they were saying 3,000 children go there every single day. and they didn't do enough homework to figure out how to secure those buildings and keep bad guys from coming in. How is that possible? And how is it possible that it continues to happen over and over and over? It has nothing to do with the guns. It has everything to do with the fact that the American citizenry has given themselves over to a bunch of incompetent criminals that don't care about them. And they simply do nothing to come up with effective solutions. It's got to stop, folks. It's got to stop. Otherwise, things like what the president said here. He said the Schumer-Rounds-Collins immigration bill would be a total catastrophe. Now, most of you don't even know this. It says the DHS said that it would be the end of immigration enforcement in America. It creates a giant amnesty, including dangerous criminals, doesn't build the wall, expands chain migration, and keeps the visa lottery, and continues deadly catch and release, bars enforcement even for future illegal immigrants. Voting for this amendment would be a vote against law enforcement and a vote for open borders. If Dems are actually serious about DACA, they should support the Grassley bill. Okay. Are you listening to what I just read you? That is happening in Washington, D.C. right now, and I bet most of you didn't even know that. That not only are they not proposing anything that's worth anything, but literally every single aspect of our immigration system that is broken, Chuck Schumer and the rest of these idiots are actually trying to force those things into the bill. What? Somebody just wrote NRA is in bed with POTUS. You're an idiot. See, this is what kills me. I'm going to say this about trolls tonight. These idiots that come on this social media platform, these are people that had no social outlet before social media started, with the exception of hanging out with their nerdy friends. And I'm sorry that I'm calling them nerdy, because I know a lot of people who are nerdy, and they're awesome people. These people are going nowhere in life. I could guarantee you that this Hanky person, whatever it is here, has no idea about effective solutions, has heard none of this conversation. In fact, this is probably his one jolly that he gets out of life, is coming on and causing, angst inside a chat room. But the fact is, I remember a story I heard. I don't know if it was, I think it was on Charles Stanley, who's my favorite preacher, next to my Uncle Fred, and his son Kent. I remember listening to Charles Stanley, and they had a guy on there. He was talking about how he was a drug addict, and he was going to do enough drugs to kill himself. And he was pushing the needle in, and he was going out. He heard in the background a sermon by Charles Stanley that his neighbor was playing. And he could hear that and just out of his ear. And I guess, I don't know if he stopped putting the drugs in or he pulled the needle out and he collapsed. And so he didn't put enough in there to die. But when he woke up, he remembered what he'd heard. And a seed had been planted, and it was profound. And I can guarantee you that there are many trolls that are watching tonight. They come on here and this is what they do. Or they're liberals who just can't get past the fact that, you know what, maybe liberal is not the way to figure out what's effective. Just like there's probably conservatives that are watching and are saying, I'm never watching the show again because his stance on immigration, I can't stand it, and they're not going to. I can guarantee you there's people probably doing that. But what I hope is that there's enough seeds planted that tonight people will stop and say, we don't have to lean to the left or the right anymore. We never needed to do that to begin with. We need to be effective thinkers. We need to come up with real understanding of what's happening and look for real answers. not political answers, not left or right, liberal or conservative, black or white, gay or straight, man or woman. We need to come up with effective solutions. I hope those seeds are planted. And if you're some kind of weirdo troll who's on here and just doing this stuff, here's what's going to happen. You'll go home, or you'll get off this tonight, and you'll be forgotten. Nobody cares about what you had to say. You may cause somebody to be angry for a second, but shortly you're going to be forgotten. And nothing that you say is going to mean anything. I can guarantee you wouldn't have a show like this. Because, first of all, you have zero experience to talk about. I spent over 20 years, if you include college, 26 years, educating myself from nothing for the sheer fact of serving this country and serving the citizenry of this country. If you want to come on and you want to troll, or if you want to stand your ground because you're a conservative, or you want to stand your ground because you're a liberal, and you think that I'm right, or I'm going to tell you the same thing I told that girl today when I blasted her on Twitter after she had the audacity to wait until I got off the radio show to put words in my mouth that I didn't say. This isn't cute, and it's not funny. This is serious business. And just like life and death, people live life and they don't realize, and they're surprised when they get sick. They get surprised by it. And all of a sudden they're on death's door and they're amazed that it's actually happening to them. Even though 100% of all people will die, they never, ever contemplate it whatsoever. And I feel as though the same thing goes on day in and day out when we look at solutions. And these murders of people continue to happen again and again, and yet people are surprised that it keeps on happening. Yet they go out and they have the same debates over and over again about weapons or blaming the NRA and so on and so forth. But yet they look right past the simple, effective solutions. It's amazing. And I challenge you tonight, if you're liberal or conservative, let go of that crap. Stop it. Start talking. Let go of your hatred, for instance, if you're a liberal. Let go of your anger of Donald Trump. It's nonsense. Donald Trump has only been president for a year. This country is jacked up because of over 200 years of the Republican and Democratic Party. You really want to blame people, those establishment people. Blame the people like Ben Sasse, Republican, or Nancy Pelosi, or Ted Cruz. Yeah, I'm saying Ted Cruz, or Barack Obama. Blame the people that go from high school to Harvard to senator. They don't pay any price along the way. They don't get vetted out along the way. They don't figure out what they're good at or what they're bad at. They don't get beat down and then rise to the occasion. None of that stuff. These are people that go like this. Boom, boom. And all of a sudden they're making policies that affect everybody. What kind of bullcrap is that? You should take a stand against that. Stop with this liberal conservative nonsense, because that's who you're bowing to. And remember this. You will always bow to somebody. Always. You're either going to bow to God himself or you're going to bow to Satan. You're going to bow to the Democratic Party or you're going to bow to the Republican Party. The only difference between God and Satan in that war is that we don't have to bow to the Democratic and Republican parties. We can stop that. But will we? I don't know. There's another idiot. Right there. Oh, I missed him. So, there you go. And I refuse to continue to talk to people who don't get it. I don't have time to wait on you. I got one other thing to say here before I close tonight. And I don't normally, I try to stay away from, well, I mean, I tell people how it is. I'm not going to try to act like I don't. Joey Behar, or Bayer, or however you say your name, you have got to be one of the biggest idiots I mean, there is in this country, not just on television. These people have a platform and they waste it. People, I wouldn't doubt if she's on some type of drugs. She acts like she's on cocaine because she acts like the cocaine, and forgive me for my mom's watching this for using this language, but it's the asshole drug. I know I've arrested plenty of people on cocaine. They act like assholes. My first client that I had when I got out of the bureau, Dr. Brown, who's dead now because he overdosed on drugs, was an asshole. Because he was on coke, the guy thought he knew everything. Joey Behar acts exactly like this. Now, I don't know if she's on coke or not, but she's definitely an egomaniac that has no problem slamming Christians, telling us on television that you have a mental illness if Jesus talks to you, when in fact the Bible, the very book that we worship, tells us that God talks to us. That small, still voice that guides you if you allow it to override the ambient noise of the world. Not only does Joey Behar not know anything about Christianity, she is an obnoxious, pompous, arrogant buffoon. Now, I want you to think about that. I've called a lot of people idiots, but they're not necessarily buffoons. They're actually like criminals. They're very smart at what they do. A lot of these politicians, completely incompetent in policy, but man, they definitely know how to stay in power, and they know how to work the politics. This woman thinks she can say and do whatever she wants, and she walks all over anybody who disagrees with her or comes down on something that she believes in. Yet she'll turn around and insult Christians, calling people like Mike Pence, who I'm no fan of Mike Pence, but she will call Mike Pence mentally ill because of his faith in Jesus, and he says that he has a conversation with Jesus. I have conversation with God every single day. God doesn't always answer me, but man, when he does, it is powerful. And if I have plenty of evidence through my life where I had a voice tell me this is the way you need to go, you need to forget about that. And if I didn't and I went this way, I got burned. And if I went that way, it worked. And I know who my God is. And Joey Behar, you should just shut your mouth and go away, because you are one of the problems that I've been talking about this entire show. You and your platform continue to convince sheep that are drifting in this country that everybody that's conservative is crazy, that if you own a gun, you're crazy. If you're a Christian, you're crazy. When in fact, the only one that's crazy is that hateful woman. But she's either too coked up or narcissistic or psychopathic to get it. And people still put her on a pedestal and listen to what she has to say on a daily basis. She should be fired. She should be nowhere in front of a camera. And one last thing. A friend of mine got banned by Facebook, and I hope the Facebook techs are watching this tonight. She got banned by Facebook because of something she wrote. And I'm going to tell you what she wrote. So, she was banned by Facebook for 24 hours for writing. This is when, well, I'm not going to tell you when, okay? She got banned yesterday for 24 hours because she said, "Why is Uma sleeping with a Jew? Isn't that against Muslim practices?" She wasn't slandering Jewish people. She wasn't slandering Muslims. She was asking a question. Why is Uma sleeping with a Jew? Because if you look in the Middle East, and my heritage is Judaism. I'm a Christian. Jesus was a Jew. And she's asking the question, why is a Muslim and Uma Abedin, whether people realize it or not, is deeply in bed with CAIR, and those are fundamental Muslims. Why is she sleeping with a Jewish guy? I thought it was against their beliefs, their practices. That was the question she asked, and she got banned for 24 hours. Now, here's the kicker. She said that a year ago on Facebook. She wrote that a year ago. So this is what's happening with Facebook now. And they're not being honest, just like Twitter isn't honest, just like YouTube isn't honest. They're going through your posts. They're going through your direct messages, your private conversations. They're going through and I'm sure they have algorithms that are looking for these things, and they're going to ban you if they find that you have said something that they don't agree with that is unfair or against. Now, I guarantee you, she could have said something nasty about Christians and nothing would have happened. I will put every bit of money I have right now on that. I guarantee it. These algorithms don't pick up insults against Christians. But the fact that she said, why is Uma sleeping with a Jew? Isn't that against Muslim practices? She got banned, and that's something that she said a year ago on Facebook. A legitimate question. We're on to you guys. We're on to you. I think it's absolutely wrong. And I think it's un-American. If you're going to build a platform like this, milk money out of people, and then start censoring them. The very people who constantly talk about, and this is another thing about the left that just kills me, the very people that talk about freedom and about allowing everybody to be the way that they want to be, and you live and let live, and if somebody wants to have an abortion, you can't infringe on her, her body, and you can't, on and on and on. Except when it's an idea that they get, like, we got to ban the guns, or you can't say anything about Muslims. I don't think that they banned her because she said something about asking a question about Jews. I don't think so. Maybe it was, but I doubt it. The fact is, you have a bunch of millennials in Silicon Valley who've got way too much money, way too much time, and they believe that they are the moral equivalent of a saint. Even though they go out and do their drugs, they do underhanded things like this, they lie, they censor people. Very un-American. Very, very un-American. So, that's it for tonight. I'm going to be hosting the David Webb Show tomorrow from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. I hope you guys tune in. It's on SiriusXM Patriot Channel 125. And let me know what you think about this show tonight. You can tweet me. You can respond to this here on Facebook. And let me know what you think. Again, don't forget, Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival. For all you trolls out there that say, this guy's an idiot, he doesn't know what he's talking about. Well, I do know what I'm talking about. And in fact, I wrote a book so that I could help you understand how you can be safer. Now, if you're an idiot troll, you should go buy it anyway, just to give it a look. You could use it as fire starter. I don't care. I'll take your money, and I'll use it to buy more books, and then I will donate those to other people. But what I want you to do is, if you haven't bought this book, go buy it. My friend Rita has sent these to her congressman and her senator. I don't know who else. She's been like sending it like crazy. If you've got the money, go buy a bunch of these and send them to people in Congress. Send them to your senators. Send them to your mayors, your chiefs of police. Send them to your school board so that take it to the school board. Tell the school board, say, look, no more school shootings. We need to go through this book. We need to set up target packages on our schools, and we need to figure out who would attack us, why they would want to attack us, where they would come from, when they would do it, or where they would do it, when they would do it, the avenues of approach, and how they would carry it out. It's all in here, and we can do it. Take this to your school board members. Whew. Worked up a sweat tonight. All right, that's it. I'm going to get ready for bed because I got to get up early. and host this show. Hopefully tomorrow will be just as good as this show was tonight. Don't forget about the GoFundMe page, gofund.me/The Experts Roadshow. And anybody knows anybody at CPAC, ask them this question. Why aren't they reaching out for people like myself or Ron Bellin or Kitty Kelly or people who have real insight that are conservative to come and speak there? I don't get these conservative. You know who's speaking there? Politicians and journalists. The last two people that need to be speaking to the conservative people in this country. Crazy. So that's it. Let's go to the Truth Zone. Although the whole show's been like a Truth Zone tonight. You see, it's interesting. Nights like tonight, when I do a show like this, I literally start out with an idea. I prepare myself mentally by observing what's happening throughout the day. And what I do is, when it comes time for the show, I try to make a decision about what exactly I'm going to talk about. And then it just, I know I'm on it when it flows, and it's something that you all need to hear. A lot of the times I get through with this show, I got to go back and rewatch what I said, because when the truth starts pouring, it is like a fire that you cannot put out. Jesus said it himself. His disciples looked back at him when he'd been crucified, and they remembered when he had turned over the money tables of the money changers on the temple steps in a fury, telling them to stop making a mockery of his Father's house. And they remembered that his faith burned inside of him like a fire. And I'm telling you, folks, you will know when you are on to the truth or an effective solution when it burns inside of you. Not when it burns in a way where it's your ego and you feel like you hate a person. When you're onto a solution that is the truth, you feel a burning because you care. I want this gun debate to go away because it's not going to solve anything. And I want the American people to start looking at realistic solutions, analyzing their facilities, setting up real defenses, understanding how the attacker thinks, and doing it for the love of the children and the people of your community. If you're wanting to debate about what to do to make schools safer, and all you can do is argue about gun rights and eliminating guns, and you're so emotional that you can't talk about it, like today when I was on the Dr. Drew show, and this girl can't even talk. She can't even listen. What's happening then is you are taking an ideological side, not a realistic approach. You are focused on an ineffective solution, not an effective solution, because it has too much emotion involved. Take it away, take the emotion away, and look at things like a warrior. How do we fix this? Now, I hope I didn't offend anybody tonight, and if I did, hey, get over it. I didn't say anything that wasn't the truth. I'm Jonathan Gillum, and my buddy Rico over there is asleep. He has terrible arthritis when it's about to rain. Stick with me, CQRF. We are going to continue to bring the truth, and together, as this grows, we will be a mighty force. This is The Experts. I'll see you tomorrow morning on the David Webb Show on SiriusXM Patriot Channel 125, 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. I may or may not do a show tomorrow night. I don't know yet. I don't know how I feel. I may be tired at the end of the day. But either way, wherever you see this face, wherever you hear this voice, wherever you see the symbol CQRF, you can know one thing. you can always be sure that the truth has arrived. I'll see you tomorrow. Rico wanted to say hello. Right? Not really. Peace! How many of you are prepared for an incident like this? Get my new book, Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival, and I will teach you to think like an attacker so you can truly defend yourself. Don't just react, act. Available for pre-order now on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. Sheep No More. Get it.